Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, wherever you are. Thank you so much for joining us on Let's Get Loud for another exciting series. This time, we are going to be speaking with Joval Smith, someone who couldn't read up to grade 5 in elementary school. And today, he is a university graduate. Joval, thank you so much for agreeing to share your story on Let's Get Loud with the world. So, someone out there who has probably lost the hope of not being able to advance because they couldn't read or they're feeling stuck wherever they are, your story, your success story, might just be what they need to help them get unstuck. Joval, thank you and welcome.
Hello, everyone, and thank you for having me on Let's Get Loud, my first official interview of my success story.
Thank you for coming, and it's a pleasure to just hear your story and for you to share it with the world. Joval, I know that your mom died when you were 9 months and you had to be cared for by your father and also his extended family. Do you want to share a little bit on that episode of being taken in as a 9 month baby and growing up in an extended family?
Well, growing in an extended family has its benefits, has its pros, it has its cons. But being the baby, you are the spoiled one. So I was called the baby by my grandmother. Whenever she's referring to me, she would say the baby. But growing up with an extended family, I used to cry a lot. So they used to call me the cry baby. But what I was crying for was maybe because I naturally miss my mom. And so I usually cry. I was so emotional that if someone teased me, I would start crying and everyone would wonder, why am I crying so much? Or why do I have to cry so much? But it was just a natural miss of my mom and her presence.
Oh, that's sad, but I'm glad you got over the crying and you actually went to school. So let's hear the story of going to kindergarten or basic school, as we call it in Jamaica, and then on to elementary school. You shared that you couldn't read up to grade 5. So tell me, how did you advance from kindergarten or basic school to primary school without being able to read?
Well, in those times, the education system wasn't so strict
Mm.
because every community has a basic school. So you'd go to basic school at about year two and a half, three, and you'd left at year six. So grade one, grade two, grade three at kindergarten, a basic school as we call it in Jamaica. And then you'd graduate and move on to a primary school, whether it's one in the community or one outside the community. I was privileged to attend one in the community where I could walk from school to home and from home to school daily. So in grade one of primary school or elementary school, I could remember my grade one teacher used to beat me a lot. I don't know why, but I wasn't a rude child. I
Mm.
used to get a lot of beating. But uh, thinking back and looking back at the years, I could understand why, because especially when she put work on the blackboard, then it was blackboard and she writes with chalk. Not sure if you're familiar with that. But
Of course.
so
That's the
when
era
she
I grew up in.
so when she writes with the chalk on the blackboard, then you have to write it off in your book. Say, for example, sentence or a mathematics question. I couldn't do it because I wasn't knowledgeable. Or probably I wasn't paying much attention in class. I was distracted.
I wonder
But
what distracted you, Jovel.
uh, Not sure. Maybe playing or going outside to have break. But she used to beat me a lot because I couldn't produce maybe the quality work or produce the work that is expected of me. So, and I was shy to ask my friends to help me with the work or with a particular topic that was taught in class.
Why were you shy?
You know, growing up, I was shy, I was reserved. I grew up in an extended family, but I would say I grew sheltered. Maybe because of the death of my mom, they baby me up, as we would say, you know. So I was shy, or I maybe didn't have the knowledge or the wisdom to ask my friend to help me with my schoolwork.
So this continued then from grade one up to what grade?
To grade 4, I repeat, grade 4. I spent 2 years in grade 4 because the government came in with a system that if you cannot read, you cannot pass grade 4. So I
So it
spent,
took them up to grade four to stop you from moving on.
yes.
Wow. So when you got to grade four and you had to repeat it, how did you get over that hurdle? How did you
Well,
learn to read at that stage? By then, how old were you?
I was about, I would say about 10, because you would go to grade 5 and then you'd go to grade 6 to do GSAT at the time, or your final exam to move on to high school.
Mm-hmm.
In your time, you had common entrance.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so at, I was about 9. I would say about 9, 10 at that time.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I could remember one time we were doing end of year exam, and because of I couldn't read, and my friend, my particular, I we are still best friends. He switched his paper and gave me all the answers, and I got 100 because I would normally come like, so if there are 40 students in the class, I would be like in the 30s or the late 20s, probably 28, 29, along that parameter or along that area. So I'd be backward, as they would say. So I
Mm.
could remember my friend giving me his paper and took mine and wrote all the answers. That's the first 100 I could remember I got in a
Wow.
test. But it was cheated, you know. And I know if his parents knew that's what he did, they probably would have beat him because he had strong parents and parents of good values who nurtured him to be a gentleman of integrity. But he probably felt sorry for me and that I was behind, so he assisted me in that particular end of year test. So
That
in
that
grade
shows
4,
that shows two things though. That shows the love of a friend who didn't want to
yes,
see another friend fail. But again, like you spoke about the integrity part of it, that was really no integrity right there. But he did something because he wanted to see his friend succeed. But tell us, Joval, exactly how you got over that hurdle though. How did you learn to read?
well, you know, I so in grade 4, the program that the government came in with, if you cannot read, you'd have to attend summer school um, for say about maybe about 4 to 6 weeks at a time. I'm not so I don't remember the amount of weeks, but so while the other students who pass or matriculated, they would go on to grade 5, so they would get their summer holidays. So you who could not read, you'd be taken out and put into a different class,
How
so a
did that
slower
make you
class.
feel? How did that make you feel?
I was very embarrassed because all my friends were going away, leave me to grade 5, and I felt very bad because we used to play together, and then they would use their meter rule, as we'd say, to measure me. Well, persons would use their meter rule to measure me. That means they would say, your friends are brighter than you and you're backward, you're dunce. and what happened to you. But I mean, no one was looking at the need that, or looking at the situation that I grew in a large family. Not blaming my family, they did a good job in my upbringing. But my aunt, she had so many of us to took care of, and she tried her best. She would read to us, but maybe she did not have the know-how to know that a one-on-one session would probably assisted me better.
Mm.
So we used to go by one of my friend's house. Well, my best friend's house. We are still best friends because I have my best friends from primary school. So I think I will have them right throughout life. So I used to go by his house to play in the afternoon. But during visit to his house, or his uncle and aunt would ask if we didn't get any homework. So they would normally sit him in a little corner and have him do his homework before we go to play. But they used to realize that I used to sneak away, or I used to go to the side and hide, and they would wonder why. But I don't know. It must have been the vision of the Lord that sent his uncle to quiz me one day, and I could not spell some simple words like cow, cat, and those
Wow.
things. So after quizzing me, he realized that I was backward, or I was dunce, as we would say back then. I think dunce was a strong word, but yeah. So he did not use that. He he called us together. It was three of us. So my two best friends and myself. And he called one of his sister, and he said to her, you know that Joval can't read and we should try and assist him.
Wow.
So he spoke to my best friends and he said, you know, you guys can't advance leave him. You have to help him. You have to assist him in learning to read. And so whenever we visit my best friend's home on a regular, he would take me, and I could remember he cutting out cardboard box, well, cornflakes boxes, and write words on it and flash it and say, pronounce it, spell it. And that's where I started learning to read. And then he would put the reading book and go through it page by page with me, with pronunciation and um, learning how to pronounce these words. And until it didn't took me long. I started to read, but I still was a bit backward because maybe when I go home, it was just time to get to shower, eat dinner, and go to bed.
Right.
So yeah, I didn't spend much time like doing any homework, any projects of that sort.
Okay. So how did you start feeling at a time when you actually realized that, hey, I may not be as fast as everyone else, but I am actually reading. How did that make you feel?
It was a very good feeling, to be honest. I mean, I could remember crying whenever the my best friend's uncle tried to help me to read like the first page, and I used to stutter, you know. I could remember crying, and he would still there. He didn't get upset. He would just be there and say, "You can do it. Just take your time."
So
Put
he
me
was
through it.
an encourager, a motivator and an encourager, and
Yeah,
also an influencer.
yeah.
Wow. That is commendable. That shows how much it takes a village, because this is what you're saying now, a village to raise a child. Because not only did he encourage you and he spent the time, made the time to teach you how to read, but he also encouraged his own nephew, which was your best friend and your other friend, to help you, to not leave you behind. That is love in its entirety. And that explains why your friend actually took your paper and did it for you, because he knew what real love is, genuine kindness, real love was. And
Yeah.
to find yourself in that situation, as you said, it was the Lord, it was God sent people He ordained to help you to move from being classified as a dunce, classified as being backward, because those are strong words that for a child to hear. When you hear backwards and you hear dunce, it does
Yeah.
something to your psyche. And I'm sure
Yeah.
as a child that affected your psyche.
Yeah, it did. I can remember, one time my father, we were sitting at the dining table. I had a smaller female cousin, and she was very bright. She's smart, so she could read. You could toss the book in the air and she read it before it fell. That's how smart she is. I could
Wow.
remember one night I was at the dining table and my father asked me to spell cow, and I could not spell it. So because we grew in one home, we developed this bond. We would help each other. So my cousin was sitting beside me at the time. She was doing her assignments, and she would juke me in my side and say, she would pronounce it and say, cow, Cow. I could remember my father got real upset on me because I could spell cow, a three-letter word. And he would say, "What am I sending you to school for? And you can't spell a three-letter word." So one of the time my cousin was whispering Cow to me because she didn't want the embarrassment and everything. So my father told her to get up and go in the room because he thought she was distracting me, but she was just naturally trying to help. She didn't want me to be embarrassed because I was crying and all emotional because I just couldn't get these three-letter words. Cow,
Wow.
cow,
That I
Cow.
can't begin to even imagine how you felt or what that felt like. But I am happy to know that when we return, that you will share the success story of how you not only repeated grade 4, but you advanced and went on to high school. So when we return, Joval, on the next episode, we will hear of your transition from grade 4, the repeater, to the high schooler. So until next time, thank you so much, Joval, for sharing this week. And we look forward to hearing from you next week on the transition. Ladies and gentlemen, until next week, thank you for taking the time to listen to this story. I hope it has been an encouragement, and I hope that someone who can't read or knows of someone who can't read, that they, through this story, will know that there is help no matter how far along you are in life.
Let's